The biggest mistake we made as an organization is we chased shiny stuff early on. We wanted to, own the kitchen, the laundry room, and the bathroom and every product in it. So we loaded up an inventory from toilet bowl brushes to bamboo straws, and we lost sight of who we are. And we took a risk, and it was wrong. I'm sitting on a lot of inventory, and none of the stuff is for sale on the sites. Those type of things are part of it, is chasing the shiny stuff. That was bad.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Conscious Capitalists with myself, Timothy Henry, and my partner in making the world a better place through business, Raj Sisodia. Hey there, Raj.
Hey, Timothy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, and it's a sunny, warm day for all of us, wherever you are. Brad, our guest, is in Vancouver, Raj is in Boston, and I'm in the great mountains of Berkshires in Western Mass today. And everywhere in the world, it's sunny and bright. So I hope wherever you are, it's a sunny and bright day too. Because today we have a special guest who I really respect the way that Brad has taken on an industry, which we'll come back to in a moment. We're going to call it Big Soap. He's taken on Big Soap and is making a difference with Big Soap. Brad Liski, welcome to our show. You're the CEO of Tru Earth. You're responsible for ensuring the success in the purpose-driven business. And since the launch of Tru Earth's innovative laundry sheet in 2019, you've committed to balancing profitability with sustainability. And you've grown the business to be $100 million plus business, taking on Big Soap. Tru Earth has played a pivotal role in reducing plastic waste, having prevented the creation, and this is one way of measuring success for sure, over 190 million single-use plastic containers. Wrap your head around that for a moment. They've saved the planet from 190 million single-use plastic containers. They also have a program that it will be really interesting to hear a little bit more about because it helps them get to scale, called True Giving Program, that combats hygiene poverty by providing clean clothes to more than 10 million individuals in need. Brad, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Timothy.
Tell us a little bit about the basics of Tru Earth. Describe the business to us, and how did it come into being in 2019?
We're a multinational household cleaning product company who's disrupting, as you say, Big Soap. We're found a way to take the liquids that are in plastics or in the pods and put them into a sheet format that gets transported in cardboard. So our LCA shows a 70 to 75% reduction in GHG. And beyond that, we've taken it to kind of a social venture. So trying to disrupt not only CPG or consumer packaged goods, but also how business is done. And can you go to scale with a triple bottom line? How we started, as you stated, 2019. This was a side of the desk idea. It wasn't meant to be something as big as it was. We were merely doing, what I call clean giving, and we're just trying to help someone out. We're trying to help out someone who had invested in the patent and needed to get his money back. And so we decided to try it out and see if we can't help him do that. And next thing you know, 6 years later, multinational and devoted to making true lasting change.
So, Brad, I love that humility of, and 6 years later, we have 100 million plus business that's multinational and going into multiple different ways of taking on Big Soap. So tell me a little bit about, the understatement there. Okay, we're starting with this idea that radically disrupts the industry, and you're taking on really some of the biggest consumer product companies in the world. Where do you begin to sort of say, I'm just doing a friend a favor of helping them get some money back? I mean, okay. but take us down the first couple of years, because it's an amazing story.
Really, it wasn't us. At the end of the day, yes, humility is one of my core values as a person, but also as an organization. But at the end of the day, it's true in that the customers were the ones who drove this. They're the true change makers in this whole thing. So we just happened to have a product at a time when somebody wanted to make a change, and it was logical. The logic prevailed in this scenario. It was easier to use. It was more convenient. It was better for high density living, and it did the job. It cleaned clothes, and I think that was why this took off. Then these like minded people started working together until the pandemic helped us a lot. People were not able to buy cleaning products on a shelf in a grocery store, so they went online, and we were already online. The conversation had already started. So now, well, I may as well try that. So that trial started working. The movement continued to build, and it wasn't long before we realized that we got to lean into this. There's something happening here that isn't normal, and I've had my face dragged through gravel for 30 years as an entrepreneur. So you take these opportunities when you can. You realize from past wins and losses, and you lean in hard, and that's what we did. And so likely within the first several months, it was clear that this was more than just a side of the desk project.
Yeah. And taking on big soap. I mean, tell us a little bit more, because there's a story of not only competition, but co-opetition in there, isn't there? In terms of how your relationship to big soap is evolving.
You can't disrupt and make true lasting change without the big corporation in our category. There's just a handful of companies that have control over especially laundry detergent cleaning globally. And without them, we won't actually make change. So we can make a dent in our own brand, but until they buy in to the form factor and really come on, true lasting change doesn't happen. So we knew that going in. We knew that the hope and the intention was to actually wake them up to a better way, that there actually can be a solution to the plastic pollution that happens in the world. And we'll stay on our social venture with a triple bottom line and staying focused on the social impact, where the major corporation will focus on throughput product. So now, at the beginning, it was competitive, but it was a fun competition. And then now it's a collaboration in some aspects, collaborating with some of the big firms, and in other aspects, showing them that there is some market opportunity for them to really go on. So now we have almost all of the majors have this form factor. So Unilever, Procter and Gamble, Henkel, they're all coming on board with the form factor, and that's a win for us from a legacy perspective, if you will.
I love that, Brad. You're defining success at a higher level. It's not just about how can I maximize market share, but how can we transform the industry that we're part of, right? And so are they licensing this from you, or do they have their own versions of this?
No, their own versions. Yeah, we had some about 200 small brands knock it off within the first couple of years. Yeah, there's hundreds of brands that you can buy. Unfortunately now, but where the difference between a garage company and a big CPG firm is, a garage company doesn't really care about the chemical composition that can be put in these sheets. And so they may be saving a plastic jug, but they're going downstream and really doing harm. And that is a concern for some of the stuff. So now that the big firms are coming in, a lot more conscious effort around what is and should and shouldn't be in there. Yes, is there still over chemicals? 100%, right? We've been entrenched as consumers that you gotta kill the stain, right? You gotta have cleaning power, very, very masculine, strong, aggressive words when it comes to cleaning. When really what we're trying to do is we want to refresh our clothes. We don't work in salt mines anymore. We go from air conditioned box to air conditioned box. We never really get that dirty. So, my hope is that next iteration of this technology, people realize you don't really need to put so much cleaning power into these things and do downstream damage.
And they work with cold water, right? I think a lot of the detergents now,
Yeah.
most of them work so that whole sitting on your machine that you think you have to make it hot to clean is no longer true, right? So that's another.
Exactly. But that is also one of those things that becomes difficult as, sitting in my seat. That cold water push was pushing the responsibility of the planet down to the consumer, which is good and that's important. But corporations need to look in the mirror when they talk about their environmental impact and not tell the consumer, hey, if you do this, you'll save money and you'll save the planet. But I'm going to keep chugging out these massive chemicals on you.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that you make, that the responsibility for sustainability lies mostly with the companies.
Yes.
And we should not say the customer has to demand it and then we'll produce it. The company takes responsibility for moving and, in a way, leading the customer in that direction, right? So tell us how you came to that conclusion and what does that look like in your industry and other industries? It is kind of a self-policing, or is it a code of conduct, or is it an industry association level changes that we should be doing as companies?
Unfortunately, it's a yes answer to all of those. This is a multi-pronged, shift that has to happen. So first does come with the consumer. At the end of the day, this sheet category would not be created, and it's expected to be 1.5 billion by 2030. So it is real. It's growing faster than the pod category did when it was created. But with that comes a whole bunch of responsibility. And in order for that responsibility to be contained, there has to be some regulatory bodies that come in and say, okay, let's take a look at this. We can start putting in some plastic taxes. I think that plastic tax reform has to come through. It has to expand significantly outside of Europe. I think that we also need corporations to get their board of directors and their shareholders to do what we do, which is ratify the impact that we're going to make on a positive side, so that CEOs can be empowered to move forward, knowing that they've got the support of their board. It isn't a simple answer. There's no silver bullet in this, but if the consumer abandons form factor, then it starts to collapse. So the consumer has to stay in and continue to push for change. But the other bodies can't sit back and wait for that to get to mass volume.
Yeah, it's a both and answer of you're providing product. The consumer says, oh, wake up, this is good. I understand why it's good. And it becomes this virtuous cycle. And how has that continued to play out for you in terms of other markets that you've gone into? Because you started with the detergent market and now you're taking on big soap in other areas. And how has that played out in terms of your ability to reinvest in the business, reinvest in product development at a level where you can sustain that kind of competitive advantage?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that, Timothy, which is it's a great question. Number one, because the knockoffs happen so fast, we had to make a decision. Do you invest heavily in defense, or do you just keep innovating out in front of everybody and build a groundswell? So we opted early on to build the groundswell, to invest in the innovation. So for the last 4 years, we've been working on some innovation that'll come out in 2026. That'll put some more distance again between us and the knockoff brands, and continue to disrupt. So in my lens on this is it will disrupt even more than our first disruption. So that's kind of what we have to do. That's what the lens is did we invest in, and will we continue to invest in R&D? As a small CPG firm, we don't have near the budgets that the majors do. And our hope is then that the majors see this new innovation and then continue to move forward as well. Because it is the other categories that the consumer needs right now. They're the ones that are demanding that we keep going. They're the true change makers, as we call them, are the ones that say, what do you have to clean my house? What do you have to clean my windows? What do you have to clean my toilet? So as we bring these products on, those will disrupt that portion of the category. However, there's still some entrenched belief systems. There's entrenched belief systems into how much cleaning power we need in order to clean our toilet. There's also a belief system, and this should be easy, and sometimes water activation products like our sheets are not as easy. In the laundry room, super easy. In the toilet bowl, super easy. But when it comes to a spray cleaner, not as easy. You got to roll it up. You got to put it in. You got to shake it up. The consumer still doesn't want to go that one extra step sometimes. So we're working on that.
So say a little bit about the giving program and how that helped you get to scale. Because I think that you've used philanthropy in a strategic way to help scale a business. And so say a little bit about that interesting dynamic of the philanthropy effort and how that impacted your ability to scale a business.
Yeah, and it wasn't even knowingly strategic. It just turned out to be a benefit, right? It was one of those.
When you write the case study, we say, Brad, what a brilliant strategic move. And
Maybe so, but from the catalyst of it was actually during the pandemic. So it was literally my daughter and I, and we saw that retailers couldn't get laundry detergent soap. How could it possible that food banks and shelters get cleaning products? So, we had the product, they had the need. We just she literally just picked up the phone and started calling local shelters and saying, do you guys need some? Let's help out. And from that, we found out one big reality is that food banks don't get laundry detergent donated. That it's not something that they have because it's not a convenient thing to distribute. It's a big jug. How do you distribute that to a family member when somebody's got a backpack and all they can carry, and you got to put a jug of laundry detergent in there? That it just isn't practical. So we saw this massive need in the market, and we leaned in heavily into that and said, okay, well, let's find some kind of way to connect our change makers to our donations. And that's where we came. Originally, it was, to drive subscription. So if you subscribe to the product, then we would donate. And that was a tactic. And it didn't feel right because it was driving to one part of the business and not to the entire core. And we were very heavy in bricks and mortar and continuing to grow at a retail shelf. So we changed our donation promise to $25 worth of product bought anywhere in the world by any means, and we'll make sure one person in need has laundry detergent for an entire month. That made it much cleaner and much easier to understand. So then partner with Feeding America, Food Banks Canada, the Trussell in the UK, Feeding Hong Kong, and partnering with these major corporations and food banks made it the systems and the process and the supply chain cleaner. So now we know and confidently that we're supporting the neighborhoods that our customers are in. We also do a massive donation into the global south, mostly into the healthcare side and disaster relief. So quite often those two situations do not get cleaning products. And fortunate, our product can be used in a pail. And World Vision did a video where it talks about an orphanage and you can see them cleaning the clothes in a pail. And that's how they had to function. Strategically, it just became who we are. It became our DNA. It then had to move to, okay, well, I need to then now ratify this inside the board every year to make sure that this amount of money, because it's not a small amount of money we're talking about. And in every year since our existence, we've spent more on social responsibility and ESG than we made in EBITDA. And that is a difficult thing to explain to a board of directors and shareholders. But that now became part of our DNA, which now is part of our strategy, which now is that other reason why Tru Earth versus a large CPG firm.
So are you a public company, Brad?
We are not public. No, still privately held. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about the business side of it. So you've got, obviously the product itself and the triple bottom line perspective. But have you thought about what is your purpose, or you articulated that, and have you identified your values, and how have you sustained and built your culture as you've grown so rapidly?
Difficultly to the answer of that last one of maintaining and growing, but I'll speak to it a little bit more in a second. But we have a critical cause. We don't have a mission and vision. I don't believe in missions and visions. They're words on a wall. We have a critical cause, and that's to make true, lasting change that cares for your future. We put that at the front of every meeting. We put that it literally is on the wall in every area, but it's also at the beginning of every board meeting, and we make sure that every major meeting I start, or whoever's leading that meeting says, let's make sure every one of our decisions, is part of our critical cause, so that it just grounds us into where we are. The core values are definitely done, and they've had to evolve. It's interesting that our core values, when we first started, which are core and still become core, as we grow as an organization, we needed to. We're literally in the process of modifying those core values and building on them to speak to our new crew members that we were different. We're different now. We have to be different. We can possibly be the same, and our customers are different. Our stakeholders are different. So the core values have to, not that we change or abandon our existing core values, we have to evolve our core values. Otherwise, the culture gets stuck in the past and wants the past, and you can't be the past in our category. You have to evolve. Otherwise, you will not grow.
To say a little bit more about that evolution, because I think that's a really important thing you don't hear every day. Our values needed to evolve to the scale and to the change in our customer base. So what translate that a little bit to what does that mean practically in terms of, like, give us an example. Well, what's evolved from or evolving in your new set of values?
The core values of the new are bringing a lot more accountability to, and understanding what accountability means from the shop floor through to the board of directors. What winning means, what being competitive in now a very, very competitive space, and what that means versus when we were just disrupting. We're disrupting and we're competing. We're on the same shelf, but yes, we have to innovate. So making sure that people understand that. Elevating our team, elevating the person beside you. DEIB has taken a massive hit in the last few months, and we wanted to bring this front and center that, we still firmly believe that is the gateway to the future crew members' happiness, for lack of a better word. And then we have to bring innovation into the core values. It wasn't part of the core values at the beginning. Our core values were, not just get out there, but get out there and make known. Where now we have to innovate, and we have to innovate with impact. We have to continue to disrupt the status quo, but create bold, meaningful change for people and planet. And then with the other one, I think that really was different that we're bringing to the table is navigating with intention. We have to remain agile, but we have to chart our course. And we use a ship analogy for the organization. We have to chart our course with, clarity, courage, and care.
And Brad, you use the language of critical cause.
Yes.
Which sounds like purpose. Or what was the conscious decision to use that phrase and not purpose, like many companies are doing?
In my mind, a purpose is it's big, it's huge, it's soul filling. A critical cause puts time onto it. It puts a time based. We don't have time to do this. This isn't, as much as I'm trying to build a 20 or 50 or 100-year brand here. We're not trying to do, a build and dump. We're trying to build something that lasts. We have a climate reality that we're facing, and purpose doesn't have a time. It's just something that will become. Where a critical cause is, we have something to wake up to and focus on I have to do this. This is a cause. This is something that has to be done. And it's critical because the time is not in our favor right now.
We also use another phrase, are change makers.
Yes.
So I think that's a really core idea to your business model. So talk a little bit about your community of change makers.
I'm not a big believer in calling someone a customer or a client. We call ourselves an organization, and that's because we're, rather than a company, because we're a group of like-minded people around a common purpose. So these change makers, the true change makers in this whole thing, as I kind of alluded to, they're the ones that, they're the reason we grow. They're the reason we're able to do true giving in our program for donation. It's not us. And I think what frustrated me as a customer or a consumer, especially when it came to philanthropy, is that when I walked down, I'd go check out at a grocery store and they'd ask, would you like to donate $2? And I'd donate the $2. And then there'd be a press announcement of the company donating $20 million, of which it was my money. And I had a problem with that. And I tried to say, well, how can we do something different in this scenario? And how can we make sure that the customers understand that they're the ones driving this? They're the real reason. They're the ones that are making the change, because we would have been long gone if the change maker didn't buy in, if the change maker didn't go into their family network and around a dinner table and say, have you tried this new product? If the change makers didn't put it in stockings during the holidays, we would not have made it. So to call them a customer is an insult in my mind. They're the change maker to this whole thing.
So I love that. And Raj, I want to hear from you, the marketing professor on this one, because, like the radical shift in mindset of, I don't have consumers or customers, I have change makers. And I'd love, Brad, for you to talk a little bit about how that changes your marketing. So what's different about your marketing when you're saying, we're trying to create a community of change makers versus, we're trying to sell our product to this customer segment?
It's a battle. It's not easy. Unfortunately, when you look at transaction, selling a product with value proposition of a product transacts better. Selling ease transacts better than environment. So we've had this long debate for 6 years, and we continue to probably have it for the next 60 on what is the messaging and how do we do it. So there's a case study actually that was done on what I did with ESG and marketing, and how it originally was inside the marketing department, and didn't work. And sometimes it falls under the operations department, and that doesn't work. So I had it reporting direct to me, and forcing or mandating environmental messaging in there, even though the transaction didn't happen. And I think now that we're embedded, so now that we're bigger, it's embedded into our marketing strategies and plans. That conversation, if it's not part of it, it's weird. It won't work. And it's one of the reasons to believe for us as a product company, for lack of a better word, it has to be in that forefront. So I don't have the answer on this, and that's the tough part of a conscious capitalist, is marketing your conscious efforts is a tough thing to do.
Well, I think the shift is really treating people not as customers, but as stakeholders.
Absolutely.
Right? Who happen to also be customers. But primarily, what does that mean to become a stakeholder in addition to being a customer, is that you actually believe in what this company is trying to do. You identify with the purpose and values and so forth. And so you become, I like your phrase of a change maker. In a way, you're activated to be part of that cause, right? And over time, you may end up working for that company because you identify so strongly with it, etc. So I think it is really the idea of treating the customer as a stakeholder, not just as a customer, that we want to sell something to, right? We want to, in a way, recruit them into a movement of some kind, a change effort. And I think your languaging does that quite well. But there will still be a proportion of customers who are just customers. They're not
Yeah.
actually not emotionally connected or engaged
Correct.
with that. And probably some kind of hybrid, right? That over time, we want most of our customers to behave and be treated as stakeholders while recognizing that they'll still be the more transactionally oriented segment that that will be there as well.
And I think the next level of scale, when you get to $250 million, $500 million, $1 billion in revenue, that becomes more and more real. That it becomes product performance, price. Right now it's always a combination of product performance, price, and purpose. And the purpose is winning for us in those things. The price is now competitive, and in fact, some of our large competitors, are significantly more money than us. So that we've had to fight that fight for a long time, and now long time, 5 years. It's not a long time, but you're absolutely on point, Raj, when it comes to stakeholders. And I think, if I can, the conscious capitalist CEO has to understand there's more stakeholders in this than a capitalist CEO has. I think a conscious capitalist CEO understands the realities of an existing stakeholder, your board, your shareholders, your customers, your staff, and your vendors. But a conscious capitalist CEO understands that there's two other massive stakeholders in this game, and that's the citizen, that's upstream and downstream of your product, and there's also the land, and when you're sitting in a capitalist CEO chair, those are resources. When you're a conscious capitalist CEO, those are your stakeholders, and they're a limited amount of resource. We have to find a way to be able to regenerate those and protect those. It's a very different view, not just looking at the customer, but also, where are you impacting?
And the industry that you're in, the industry leaders, Unilever and Procter & Gamble, I've always seen as quite conscious in many ways, right? Certainly Paul Polman at Unilever, and I think over the years for Procter & Gamble as well, I think, right? So I think that's a good news about your industry. You've got two companies that kind of get it.
Absolutely.
Right? And they want to, you don't have to drag them kicking and screaming. They already want to move in that direction. And you're able to, you almost serve as a catalyst, right? Kind of like what Patagonia said, we're this little company, but we can maybe inspire Walmart to make some changes.
That's the hope.
And so ultimately the purpose, your competitors become fellow travelers when there's alignment of purpose. They're not enemies to be vanquished, but they're, people to be inspired and be on that journey together. Let's talk about your leadership journey, Brad.
Sure.
We can see you embody what we read about you, that you're a humble, kind, get the work done kind of leader. That's something that you learned from your father.
Yes.
So talk about that. What did your father do? How did you learn that from him? And how has that philosophy shaped your journey as a leader, and showed up in Tru Earth, and how does it account for some of the success you believe?
I lost my dad when I was 15, so it was pretty early. So I don't think I ever heard him say the words, but his true actions were that, be kind, be humble, and get the work done. And he was a carpenter and business owner, and we were part of the family business. And I grew up with a hammer in my hand and build cabinets and homes. And I think that get the work done mentality kind of drove me through the last 3 decades of entrepreneurship. Being humble and being kind created the company, for lack of a better word. It is a triple bottom line. Being humble is understanding that your planetary impact, you are just a minor little piece in this very, very large, ecosystem. And then being kind is understand that there are people in need. When we wake up every day, we look at our KPIs and we look at our dashboards and we look at our performance and we read our press releases. We also understand that there's someone struggling. And maybe even struggling on your own shop floor. So having that reality as part of your everyday leadership, it isn't easy. There's no question, sometimes I wish I was not conscious, and then
No.
I could be asleep and realize that, or not realize that there's a bigger impact. But I'm awake, and with that, you have the responsibility to do something about it.
There's a country music song called "Humble and Kind" by Tim McGraw.
Oh,
Have you
okay.
heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
forgot
great
about
song
that.
actually. Yeah. So take a listen.
I love that. And, Brad, it's interesting to me that, one of the things that we're talking a lot about in conscious capitalism right now is how do you manage in this era of radical uncertainty? But your business was born out of radical uncertainty. You launched in 2019 and you're suddenly into COVID. And, throw out the playbooks. We're starting all over again. We're now in 2025 and your supply chain is getting massively disrupted. You're, based in Canada, your biggest markets in the US, you're sourcing from different places. Your organizations dealt with uncertainty forever, it seems. And you're taking on these big competitors and the competitive dynamics constantly changing. Um, how have you prepared the organization to be agile, adaptive? What's been critical in it? This is not a static business. This is not like we're going left, everybody, and it's like we're going leftish. We'll see what happens, and we're going to pivot and change, and you're now starting to do that at scale. So tell me a little bit about what that's been like as a leader, and how do you build that into the organization?
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder of what I went through. Appreciate that. There's no doubt, and I think that the future um, has a massive amount of uncertainty in it as well. And actually, I was on a panel a while ago, and I said, actually, there's a lot of certainty, and the certainty is that tomorrow is going to be different than today, and that's the one thing we can be certain about is that every day you wake up,
Uncertainty.
you're going to have to deal with something. So that agility, to your point, is harder at scale, especially when we're bringing in leaders and leadership that have CPG experience, where 2% growth year over year was a rock star year, and we're pushing and we want 20. And then you have some board members that'll say if you can get single digit growth in a recession, you should be super proud. And then another board member that says, well, if we're under 20, that's pretty modest, right? So I think that direction is hard. So what I've kind of done to try and create this is we have rewritten the next 5-year strategic plan, or in the process of writing that, so that our North Star is still the same as what it was 5-6 years ago. And, we call it an island. So we have graphics around the facilities, and there's an island in the distance that we're trying to achieve. And then along the way, we have to stop and make quarterly stops. And then at every one of those quarterly stops, we might have to change the ship a little bit. Some people might want to get off. Some people we might want to get off. Some people have to get on. We have to change our resources and then modify the ship and then move to the next quarter. And so every quarter becomes a target and a goal in and of itself, as opposed to a milestone or check along the way. What has been difficult is when you don't quite get to the island in that 90-day period, and you're not quite getting to those resources, and how do you modify and adjust? One of the things that I tried really hard doing was, helping crew members get through the learning pit and get to the other side. And some of the mistakes I made was trying a little bit too hard and for a little bit too long, and not realizing that there was already somebody on the other side that knew how to get us through, and bringing them on board the ship was been critical. The agility, we try and stay in front of everyone in a all hands town hall once a month, sharing that with the leadership team, the executive leadership team, so they hear more voices than just mine. You're on point, Timothy. As we get bigger, some people, they show up to get their paycheck, and that's okay, because that's what's important. Others show up because They've been, selling plastic, water and plastic for the last 10 years, and it's penance for them. So everyone has a different reason for being on this ship. So the uncertainty becomes our norm. And when it becomes pretty obvious when someone doesn't like that uncertainty, and they, I've got a goal by the end of the year. Well, you got a tariff that just hit you. So say goodbye to that goal and find me another supply chain route.
Well, I'm wondering about this in terms of, a different organizational model and operating model, in terms of you're needing to empower teams more and more and create psychological safety where people can take chances and risks. And you're empowering teams that, are one or two steps away from you to make critical decisions. And how would you start to describe that management approach that you're taking in terms of empowering, pushing decision making?
First off, getting the right person that can do that in that chair. So, that was a big part of the last year and a half of the organization, making some really tough decisions and resetting the executive leadership so that they are the ones that have had to make that decision in the past and know what a decision like that makes. Number two, trusting that they're going to make that decision, but also understanding and telling them that in our business and in my belief system, the entrepreneur's job, and even though we're that size we're still entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur's job is to make a decision based on the information they have right now, and when they're wrong, clean up the mess. So we take that and we clean up a lot of messes, but I don't know of anyone in our organization that's let go because they took a risk and failed. There's been people that have been let go because they wouldn't take the risk or they wouldn't wake up and see that their world had changed and adjust. So I think that security, knowing that if they take a risk, they're not going to lose their job because they're wrong, helps. I don't know whether they really inside their head, whether they're willing to really not care. But we try and push. If you're not going to take a chance, we're just going to be the size we're at. And we have had stalls. There's no question. We've had stalls along the way.
So let's just build on that, Brad. So you say failure to act is really our only failure, right? So you've got a bias towards action. So is there a time when you took a bold risk as a company that did not work as planned, and then how did you learn and grow from that? Because that's the idea, right?
Raj,
Which one?
that was yesterday, man. Waking up today is a risk. In this, when you're disrupting like this, we took a risk. I think the biggest mistake we made as an organization is we chased shiny stuff early on. We wanted to, own the kitchen, the laundry room, and the bathroom, and every product in it. So we loaded up an inventory from toilet bowl brushes to bamboo straws, and we lost sight of who we are, and we took a risk, and it was wrong, and I'm sitting on a lot of inventory, and none of the stuff is for sale on the sites, right? So those type of things are part of it, is chasing the shiny stuff. That was bad. Other risks, some of the international expansion before we were ready, not truly understanding the compliance and regulatory bodies as we get this size. Even funding. We went global before we knew that we could actually get funding to go global. Like somebody could have paid that tab, but by the time we went to reach out for funding, we were already too big in the market, so we weren't allowed to get anything. So some of those risks turned out to be potential. If we'd slowed down, had a strategy, execute the strategy, we probably would have been in a better spot.
Well, you raise an interesting question around funding. And one of the questions or issues that we talk about in the movement is, you get the investors you deserve. On the other hand, you need investors. And so what has that journey been like in terms of finding the right money and therefore the right board members to be aligned with where you're trying to go in terms of your critical cause?
Absolutely paramount. And I've experienced that, just recently in the most recent board meeting, having the investors, especially your Series A investors, that understand your reason for being and understand what you're trying to achieve will save you later, like you'd never could imagine. And making sure, we brought the right investors on our Series A. We were very fortunate is that we didn't need capital until I think we were probably, 40 million in revenue or 35 million in revenue. So we got into a very good position as original shareholders, that we were never, lost control of the organization with outside money. But when we brought the people on board that we did, they understood impact. They understood why they were doing it. They had different KPIs than a typical PE firm or VC. Beyond that, they then helped me create the board that also connected with what we were trying to achieve. Because as I said, even at an AGM, I had a very good shareholder say to me, "So let me get this right. We gave more to other people than you're willing to give to the shareholders?" And it was just a firm, "Yes, we did," and moved on. Nobody put up their hand. I didn't narrate past that. It was just a "Yes, we did," and we moved on. If you make the mistake as a conscious capitalist organization of putting in money, that's the best money, right? So maybe the term sheet isn't as good on an impact as it might be on a PE firm. Who knows? But later you're going to pay. Eventually you pay. And so having the right money, at the right time, will be critical for when times will get tough, because times get tough. That's business cycles, right? It's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's real business, especially when you get into a category our size and with the budgets that we're up against.
So, Brad, as a conscious business, what are three things that you feel made the biggest difference in your business as you ran it with this lens of conscious capitalism?
Yeah, three things. Pretty hard to nail it down to three, but I'll build on the number one, which was getting the right board of directors. Having that combination of independence, inactive founders, and investors on that board was one of the smartest things that we did. It gives me this sounding board of multiple lenses, but at the same time, an understanding. I don't go into a firing range at a board meeting. I actually are moving the company forward. That was a big part of it. The other one that was different was understanding that the rhetoric becomes real when you grow this fast. That, the saying, the people that got you here may not be able to get you there. I've heard it all my life, but never really had to execute on it in a short period of time. And, we had to make some really hard decisions. Two founders, two family members, and two friends all at the same time. But if we wouldn't have made those moves, we wouldn't have been able to be set up for the type of channels that we have to compete in. And then the third one, I think what's made a difference is trying not to waver whatsoever at the top of what our real KPI is. And it's the number of plastic containers prevented from ever being produced. The number of loads we've donated or people we've helped, and the number of partners and organizations we support. And I think because I didn't waver from that, it allows everyone that ability to retreat back to that when needed. Do I think people wake up in the morning and think that every day? No. Some, yeah. But I'm not going to let people forget it when I'm talking to them.
So, Brad, as a leader, what are the practices? What are the things you do to keep yourself in a place where you can lead in this way? Because, you said I have to make some tough decisions, co-founders, family members. I've got to remind the team every day. I've got to, you're carrying a lot of burden or a lot of responsibility. And how do you keep Brad Liski healthy, whole, and humble?
I don't know. When I figure it out, I'll let you know.
All right. It's a lifelong journey,
Anybody who's got
so
some,
I'll be around for,
some good advice on that, that would be great. Number one for me is meditation. I had a pretty bad temper growing up, right? And to get that under control, I had to learn meditation, and I had the fortunate reality of going through 9/11 with a travel based business. So our business basically got wiped out in a moment, and went into a pretty dark place for a very long time. And meditation kind of got me through that. So now when I look back at it, it's like, this ain't so bad. Like, I was a week away from a food bank. So when you look at the troubles that you're up against, the things you're facing, I take a look and put that perspective back in place. I'm on the right side of the ground, first off. Second, I get to talk to great people like you, and it reminds me of the things we have done. So try to reflect and realize we have taken a lot of ground over time. And then 3 is try my best to do what they call exercise. And it gets harder as we get older. There's no question. I find an excuse not to do something more than I find it to do something. So, between those 3, meditation, reflection, and exercise.
Did you have a teacher who guided you in that way, or you found meditation just when you needed it, or what
No, I had a teacher. Actually, it was a neighbor across the street. I think she saw me like yelling at cars or something, and realized this dude needs some help. So she started teaching me, and then from there, I took 7 years of training and various gurus around North America.
So what kind of meditation? Is it a mantra meditation, or is it?
Decided not to go disciplinary specific, and I actually wrote a book on how to use meditation in the business. And so I tried to evolve, all of these learnings. And this is kind of who I am, is take lots of people's advice, kind of process it in my head with my own experience, my own wisdom and training, and then try and take action. I did the same when it came to meditation, and I realized there's such a synergy between meditation and business, right? A mock-up in meditation is the same as a role play in a meeting. Grounding and being centered is just like, are you in the room? Like, can you turn off your phone? Right? It's there's a lot of similarities. So now I try and take that application into business.
I love that. Clear the mind for success. And how do you take that to your leaders? So, you found your way to meditation because you were humble enough to say, I've got a problem. I've got an opportunity now to do something about it. How do you bring that into your organization to help them discover?
Yeah, I don't think I've done it well. I think I'll be honest, I don't think I've done it well. Everybody gets the book when they get hired, and I've done a couple of sessions on it, but I don't do a good enough job actually making it part of their process. I've had a few that have called me and said, can you help me through this? Like, is there a way to do that? But, I know of a lot of leaders that'll start a meeting, put everyone in a meditation and stuff like that. That's not me. I'm not that guy, right? I'm not an open meditator. You won't see me sitting on my desk with my legs crossed and oming. So I think I could do better. That's a great call out, Timothy, actually, because no one's actually asked me that before.
Well, because one of the critical things, you're relooking at your values, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting to me. You say, what kind of leaders do we want around here? Like, what do good leaders really look like in my organization? Because that becomes a model that you start recruiting to and you start developing to. And it's fascinating to go through that exercise and say, who are the best leaders and why would we pick them in our organization? What are those characteristics? Because if I want to develop people, if I want to develop my leaders, I want them to be a certain kind of leader. And, however implicit that is, the more explicit we can make it, the more you can effectively start to look at and start to say, hey, what are some of those characteristics? How can I be better at helping my team develop in those ways?
Fair point.
I think that's an important element of the journey.
Well, Brad, as we come to the end, we like to give you some quick rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
These are fun. What is a book that you would say has changed your life the most or impacted you the most?
Other than mine?
Other than yours, yes. Yes.
Two books. At the beginning was The Art of War. Understanding competition was part of it. And then Good to Great, actually. I lean back on Good to Great on a regular basis.
Have you read Built to Last?
I've read Built to Last.
Earlier book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my favorite of his books.
Yeah.
Between those. Is there a household chore that you actually love doing or one that you really hate doing?
I love doing the dishes. I that is my role. And I've been fired from doing the laundry at least 8 times.
Is there a quote or a mantra that you come back to often?
In the champion's mind, he is never ahead. He distorts reality to serve his competitive purpose. He is always coming from behind, even though the score indicates he's destroying his opponent.
Is that from The Art of War?
No idea where that's from. That's just been resonating with me for decades.
Wow. Wow. Can you say that again? Just say that again slowly.
In the champion's mind, he is never ahead. He distorts reality to serve his competitive purpose. He is always coming from behind, even though the score indicates he is destroying his opponent.
And is that the goal, to destroy your opponent?
No, that's in my mind, that's basically saying, you have to drive forward. Champions drive.
Don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
And just keep going. Yeah.
Thoroughbreds win because they love to race. They don't race. That's why they win.
You're of course focused on removing plastics, but if there's any other thing that you could clean off the planet other than plastic, what else do you think we need to eliminate?
The overdosing of chemical composition when cleaning.
In cleaning, okay.
Yeah, we pour way too much cleaners at everything. We need to change that. I was on a panel in London and we talked about cities of the future. And there's a lot of conversation about AI being the heart of a city, and it will be the heart of the city. So I said, if that's the analogy, that AI is the heart of the city, then plastic pollution is our hypertension or high blood pressure, and chemical composition is our high cholesterol. Two silent killers that it doesn't matter what AI does, we're not going to have a city to live in.
It's probably behind the rise in cancers, right? I mean, the incredible number of... I read that there are 187 known carcinogens in the cord blood of newborn babies.
It's crazy.
It comes from all of those things, right?
It's wrong.
Yep. Is there a piece of advice that you would give your own younger entrepreneurial self?
Yeah, don't do it. Go get a job.
A government job.
Yeah. Get a job with a pension. No, I think the advice is truly that to make the best decision you can on the information you have at hand, but clean up the mess when you're wrong.
Fess up when you mess up, I think is one way they also say it, right?
Yeah.
Is there an eco-innovation that you've seen out there recently that you love, other than what your company is doing?
There's been a ton of them. There really is, and I am fortunate enough to mentor at one of the universities on some of the innovations that come out for climate, and then there's some new innovations that I hope get to market on dealing with microplastics. So some of the stuff that just try and trap it at source if we can, and some innovations that some of the fabric folks are doing on trying to find a way to get fabrics that don't break down. So I know Oceanwise is working with Arc'teryx and others on trying to find a way to get some kind of fabric that doesn't turn into microplastics.
Or just microfibers in general, or is it microplastics?
It's at the end of the day, every time we wash it, it breaks down into further and further. And that's one of the value propositions of our product too, is that clothes last longer when you use our product, because we don't break it down. We don't have so many harsh chemicals in there that it breaks down.
And you're in a beautiful part of the world up there in Vancouver. Is there one place in nature that you feel the most alive?
In the trees.
In the trees.
And that might be from the last few decades of being able to walk amongst them. Not in the beach. Got to tell you this. A beach with a margarita is a pretty good place to be too.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Brad, for your wisdom and for everything that you're doing up Tru Earth and catalyzing a massive industry to move in the right direction. So thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your leadership.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate both of what you're doing.
Brad, you're an inspiration for what an entrepreneur can be, both from a business and from a leadership point of view. Thank you for being on our podcast today. And thank you to our listeners. If you've enjoyed today's podcast on whatever channel you're listening, please hit the subscribe button. And if you feel so moved, go over to Apple and iTunes and give us a rating and leave Raj and I some comments on how we can make this even better. And for those of you that follow Conscious Capitalism, we're going to be having a Conscious Capitalism conference in September 23rd, 24th in Cincinnati. The theme is the future of the conscious enterprise, and we will be dealing with, among other things, this idea of radical uncertainty. How do we manage when the only certainty is uncertainty? And again, thanks to Rainbow Productions for helping produce this, and for Conscious Capitalism, Inc. for being our sponsor of this program. And we'll look forward to having you with us next week. Thank you.